Where other combat classes rely on high amounts of damage, the Scout relies on his high movement speed and double jump ability to dodge enemy fire. Much of his combat style is crafted through the features of his primary weapon, the scattergun. It does a large amount of damage, but has a wide spread that forces him to get close to the enemy for full effect, where he's also at the highest risk of being hurt. It has a slow rate of fire that encourages him to pause to fire, then dodge, then pause, and so on, which gives enemies a higher chance to hit him at intervals. Finally, it holds a small clip and the slow reload time to encourage the Scout to pull out of combat to reload, something which he can do easily with his speed, and gives injured enemies a chance to run before the Scout returns.
The Soldier is a core combat class featuring versatile movement and a terrific long-range damage capability. He's designed to be comfortable in almost any combat situation and to be the best long-range anti-sentry gun class. His main weaknesses are designed into his primary weapon, the rocket launcher. It has a small clip size, which forces the soldier to carefully manage his reloads, and it fires relatively slow-moving projectiles, making it ineffectual beyond short range against any opponent who dodges well, like the Scout.
The sniper rifle was another tricky design problem. To meet players' expectations, a sniper rifle has to be able to kill an opponent with a single shot to the head. On the flip side, we need to ensure it cannot be snap-fired from the hip with the same effect, because then, in the hands of an experienced player, it also becomes the game's most lethal short-range weapon, negating the sniper's primary weakness. To solve this, we implemented a charging damage meter that only appears when the sniper is zoomed. This solution has several beneficial side effects. The low damage both while unzoomed and at the initial zoom ensures that snipers can't kill opponents with impromptu snap fire. The charge time means snipers can deal out low damage shots quickly, or highly damaging shots at slow intervals, which allows opponents to overwhelm them with a coordinated rush. The high damage at the end of the charge rewards sniper-esque behaviors such as locating a decent vantage point and taking very deliberate shots.
The Pyro is designed to be the best short-range combat class, aimed at encouraging players to adopt an ambush style of play. To achieve this, we made the Pyro vulnerable in the open, which forces players to seek out enclosed areas and doorways. To add to the Pyro's short-range lethality, we made the flamethrower effects visually noisy, which helps disorient opponents long enough for the flames to finish them off.
The Demo Man is the most versatile combat class, capable of rapidly switching from strong offensive pushes to defensive area denial. He has the only indirect fire capability in the game, allowing him to take out sentry guns around the corner, and his sticky bombs give him a grenade jumping ability similar to that of the soldier's rocket jumps. His sticky bombs can also prevent enemies from moving through doorways, cover a retreat, and defend control points even when the Demo Man is somewhere else.
With its wide field of fire, the Heavy's minigun lets players who don't have great twitch aiming skills still wade into the thick of combat. To make up for this reduction in the value of the player's aiming skill, we amplified the importance of other skills. For instance, the wind-up time before firing and the Heavy's reduced speed while firing force players to learn to anticipate both the start of combat and incoming enemy attacks.
The Medic is the main support class. Previous support classes we've designed had a variety of problems. They didn't require much skill because they stayed back in defended areas, which also kept them out of the funnest parts of the game. Worst of all, this meant they weren't even terribly useful because they generally weren't near the players who most needed to be healed. We designed the Team Fortress 2 Medic to solve these problems, primarily by focusing on keeping them right in the thick of battle. Additionally, we designed the Medigun to be as easy to use as possible, so that medics can focus on survival while healing teammates. Virtually no aiming is required, which lets medics concentrate on following their heal target, who has a huge incentive to keep his medic benefactor safe.
Our main goal in designing the Medigun was to build a strong relationship between the medic and his healing target. We wanted to see what we would get if we focused on creating a tight loop between two players, instead of just thinking about getting the larger team to cooperate. The Medigun's design ensures that the medic and his target are extremely conscious of each other, watching their health and relative positions and making tactical choices carefully. We wanted there to be skill involved in being a good healing target, so that medics would seek out and latch onto skilled targets. This helps foster the relationship we were after.
Invulnerability adds an element of pacing to the multiplayer experience, which otherwise tends to have fewer emotional highs and lows than a well-crafted single-player game. When an invulnerable medic and his friends come running in, it's an extreme high point for them. It's also a rush for the defenders, who know that they've just got to hold on for 10 seconds until invulnerability fades. Invulnerability also sharpens pacing by helping a team push through a defensive stalemate when the enemy team turtles up and refuses to come out of their base. Without a lack of defensive skirmishers, it's easier for the offense to build up the invulnerability charge without interruption. In addition, invulnerability is a great goal for the medic and rewards him for being an effective healer. We encourage the behavior by adding more charge when the medic is healing injured teammates than when he's healing ones who are already at full health.
Multiplayer communities tend to focus on a small group of maps, playing them over again and again. Instead of producing a large number of maps, most of which would go unplayed, we decided to try and build a single map with more innate replayability than any we'd built before. With most multiplayer maps, you know what you'll be doing before the map is even finished loading. In our case, we wanted a map where you couldn't even predict something as basic as your starting point, let alone what you'd be doing when you got there. This map, Hydro, therefore begins with a randomized starting state. The emphasis on control of constantly shifting territories means the map rarely feels repetitive. Meanwhile, the explicit round structure keeps teams focused and provides regular highs and lows as the teams gain and lose territory.
Games usually approach stats by comparing the player to everyone else in the world. This is only really of interest to those who are near the top. With Team Fortress 2, we decided that a better approach might be to compare the stats to the player's previous successes, turning them from a worldwide comparative system into a personalized motivational one. The beginning player gets encouragement and acknowledgement that while they're not highly skilled yet, they're getting better all the time. The veterans get to see when they've managed to come close to their previous record, which encourages them to beat that record. The personal stat system also acts as a validation system. When a player feels like they've had a really good run, the stat system pops up and essentially says, "You're right, that was a great run."
The more your art direction can use well-understood visual representations, the less work you have to do to explain your game elements. The earliest version of Team Fortress 2 had a heavily realistic art direction. As time went on, we found this was causing us a lot of issues. The differences between our player classes were hard to expose satisfactorily. Weapons firing anything other than bullets were hard to visualize. Our maps didn't make a lot of sense in the real world, where two opposing forces rarely build bases within 50 feet of one another. In addition, the game wasn't visually distinct from our other products. A stylized world had none of these problems. For instance, put the massive heavy next to the pinstripe-suited spy, and players understand both the numerical health differences between the classes and their very different gameplay styles. The medic's healing beam was easily understood by playtesters when they saw the floating red plus symbols streaming into the target. A stylized fiction can easily explain why the team's bases are built right next to each other. Finally, a Team Fortress 2 screenshot is easily recognizable, ensuring that no one will confuse it with another one of our games.
Having decided on a stylized art direction, we experimented with a variety of styles before settling on the example of J.C. Leyendecker, an enormous